I'm an ambassador for Australian Hearing and have been so for some years now. When I first started doing that, I don't think Australian Hearing realised that 20 years ago I'd fallen out of a tree, a DIY accident, suffered a head injury, lost my hearing completely in the right side. And the interesting thing was that I nearly died during that. It took about 6 months to learn to speak again, to learn to walk again. But in the second 6 months, when I was so much better, I found myself becoming isolated, and I realised it was because I was deaf in one ear. I'd go to parties or I'd go to lunch or something, and I'd say to my wife, that was a waste of time, wasn't it? I don't think I'll go next time. I suddenly realised that my hearing impairment was having an effect on me. So I learned all sorts of tricks, and I was taught all sorts of tricks of sitting in the right place so I could hear what people were saying, telling people that I was hearing impaired so that they would allow me to sit where I needed to sit. And for maybe 15 or 16 or 17 years, that worked quite well. But then it stopped working, and I'll tell you why. I was talking to Men Share about 3 years ago. I'd at that stage become an ambassador for Australian Hearing, and I told them the DIY story, and then I went ahead and told them about hearing impairment and why we need to get to fix it as soon as we could. And afterwards, I took questions. There were 300 people in the audience, and way up the back, the bloke went, and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. And so this time he said, I still didn't hear him. And I took 2 steps in front of the lectern and cupped my hand like this and said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. And the bloke in the third row with tattoos stood up and he said, hey, Doc, you know how you said your hearing was terrific in the left ear? Wrong, you're deaf as a post. So Australian Hearing fitted me out, and I have a hearing aid. And do you know what? That has reduced the fatigue of listening that I really had, and it's made such a difference to me, not only in my personal life but in my professional life as well. 60% of us who are over 60 have a hearing impairment. 70% of us over 70 have a hearing impairment, and that's because as we grow older, our cells don't work as well. It's a natural thing that we all get. But if we're a bloke and we've worked on a farm, or we've worked in manufacturing, or we've been mowing the lawns for years and we've been suffering noise, I think men need to know that noise destroys. So in addition to this natural hearing impairment, which happens to all of us, you've got to add the destroying noise to the equation. The net effect of that is that more men than women at any one time have a hearing impairment. Oh, I can hear, doctor. You might be able to hear, but you may not understand. If you don't understand, and if you miss out on things, what do you tend to do? You don't go to bowls, you don't go to golf, you don't mix and match, you become isolated. And I think everybody knows that isolation leads to depression, and we in hearing know that. And so what we're trying to do is say to blokes, look, just like you have your blood pressure checked or your cholesterol checked, your blood sugar checked, your waist measurement, you should get your hearing checked as well. If you do have a hearing impairment and the audiologist who measures that says to you, look, you are down a certain degree, you will benefit from a hearing aid. Be aware that hearing aids are digital, they're fantastic. Many people don't even know, for example, that I'm actually wearing one, but I am. For those people who don't yet need a hearing aid, 1 or 2, depending on their needs, there are all sorts of assistive listening devices. For example, a doorbell that you can take to the shed in the backyard. So, you know, if someone rings on the doorbell, you know they're ringing. There are all sorts of techniques to listen to the radio and the television and make sure that nobody else is troubled by the excessive sound. The best advice I can give is that Australian Hearing is a national provider of hearing services. They do free hearing checks for everybody. There's 110 offices, and there's over 300 visiting sites. You can't go wrong. And you know, the key thing is don't do what I did for 20 years, well, maybe for 3 to 5 years of the 20 years, put up with a hearing impairment. Do something about it. If you can do something about it, change the things you can. Accept that you can't change some things, but change the things you can. You'll make a hell of a difference. And your last 20 years will indeed be